Hi everyone and welcome back to the Crafty Yellow Camper. Today I thought we would have a bit of a play with an ink technique, and this is sort of a bit of a take on the Joseph's coat technique. Traditionally with the Joseph's coat you use a really dark colour over the top. I've used a dark green, but I think it still works. So I really wanted to play with this Leaf Collection stamp set, which is one of the new background stamps in the new annual catalogue. I don't know why, I just really liked it. Sometimes when I flick through the new catalogues, I'm just instantly drawn to a particular stamp set, and I can't really tell you why, but this was one of those. A lot of the time, I think background stamps get a bit ignored because people don't realise how many different techniques that they can do with those, and this is a really good one. So I'm going to stop waffling and crack on. So basically the Joseph's coat technique uses a clear embossing powder and a mix of inks. So if I start, I'm just going to put this to one side for now, and then this card, and then we can get a move on. So basically, to make that card, I have got myself a piece of, this is one of the new in colours, this is Shy Shamrock. Really nice green, and it really coordinates with a lot of our other greens really well as well. So this is half of an A4 sheet, cut down the length of the sheet at 10.5 and scored at 14.8. Obviously if you don't have A4, then half of whatever your sheet is. Then I've cut a matte layer, and this is Lemon Lime Twist, which the lemon lime always makes me think it's more of a yellow, but it isn't. It is quite a nice green. So yeah, so we've got some lemon lime twist, and this piece is cut at 10 by 14.3. And then I've got a piece of basic white, and this is cut at 9.5 by 13.8. So we've gone down by 0.5 centimetre with each matte layer, and you can see that they will layer up quite nicely. Okay, so we're going to put the other piece of cardstock away because we need to work on this piece of basic white, and I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap paper purely because we're going to get messy. Now, I don't know if you can see my hands. I've just made 3 of these cards, and this is not a technique that is for the faint-hearted or anybody that's going out for dinner when they're card making. It will wash off. All our inks are water-based. I've only washed my hands once since I made the other 3 cards, and I am a messy crafter. You might not be as messy as me, but if you are going out on the day that you decide to make this, wear gloves. Okay, right, so the first thing we need to do, we have a selection of colours, and I'm just going to change mine up a little bit because I've changed my mind on some of the colours I want to use. So I started off with soft sea foam, but it's really quite pale, so not really dark enough, so we're going to lose soft sea foam for the minute. Right, so we are going to start with some lemon lime twist, and this is not a difficult technique. All you have to do is add colour down. You can leave white space if you want white space, but you are just adding pops of colour to your base card. It doesn't have to be organised. There's no specific way you have to add the colour. Just wherever it takes your fancy, really. So that is our first colour. So that's our lemon lime twist, which is the palest of the greens that I'm using. Next, I'm coming in with some granny apple green. Now for this one, I'm just going to start off the paper to make it a little bit paler, because what we're trying to get is some variations in our greens. Okay, I'll just have a bit down this bottom corner. Then we're going one colour darker, and I'm going to come in with the Shy Shamrock. Now this is quite a bright green, so you may want to sort of brush a bit off. You can see it's really bright, so I'm losing a bit of the colour on my scrap paper. I'm just adding little touches in. Now I haven't really left any white on here. You could do. I've left a few bits, I suppose, of white. Okay, so that's that. Right, now the next thing we need to do I'm just going to close these ink pads up because I know what I'm like. I will have it everywhere. The next thing we need to do is we need to stamp our image. Now, the tip I've got for you with these big stamps, as you can see, it is a full size stamp. So it is more than big enough for the matte layer that we are going to use. Now, I've found the easiest way to get a good coverage with these stamps, because I've got really little hands, so I cannot hold that block in my hand. So this is my cheats way. So we're going to give this a really good ink up. Now, we're not going to be using the whole stamp, but I am inking the whole stamp. Versamark is a good way of conditioning your stamps when they're new as well. Obviously, clean it off. So we've given that a good ink up to make sure that we've covered that all in Versamark. And then what I'm going to do, flip this over, and I'm going to put my piece of cardstock face down onto the stamp where I want the image to be. And then what I'm going to do is slide that stamp slightly off my paper. Obviously, if you're using a piece of grid paper, you'll have a bigger piece of paper and you can just fold it over. But I'm using scrap paper, and then holding it carefully so it doesn't, you can see I'm holding it, well, maybe you can't see. Let's push it up a bit. You can see I'm holding it still with one hand, and then I'm just rubbing all over the block where I can feel the stamp, and that will just make sure we get a good impression. But you do need to make sure that you go over the whole thing, but as I said, hold it still with one hand and rub with the other, because you don't want to ruck it up. Okay, so that should do. So we'll get rid of that. And now we can tip that off our cardstock. Now this is the bit where you need to be careful, because you really don't want finger marks on this. So we've now got our Versamark on there, and now we need to cover it with our embossing powder. And I've just realised I skipped a step. Do as I say, not as I do. I forgot to rub it with my buddy, my little embossing buddy. So before you put the stamp on, rub it over with your embossing buddy just to get any static off. Now, I've found the easiest way is to do this over a tray. These are my little tidy trays, but Stampin' Up do actually sell a bigger tray, but I already had my tidy trays. And we need to make sure, don't worry if you're chucking the whole pot at it. You can obviously put what you don't use back in the pot, but we do need to make sure we've got it all. So I'm just going to give that a little bang, get the excess powder off. Trying not to get my thumbs on it. Yep, we seem to have it all. Okay, so I'm just going to put this excess powder back in the pot. I mean, we will have used hardly any powder at all. I just like to give my little pot a sweep out, as it were. You'll be surprised how much is left on there that you can't see. Okay, so that's that done. And then I always screw the lid back on before I start heating. So if you knock that over, that's going to make a big mess. I'm just going to get that out of the way. Right, now I'm going to bring my heat gun in. So please accept my apologies because it's noisy. And we're going to heat this Versamark. Now hopefully you can hear me talking to you over the heat gun. With normal embossing powder, it changes colour from a lighter colour to a darker colour. Because this is clear embossing powder we're heating, it's going to change from a white to a clear. So take your time to go over the whole piece of cardstock just to make sure you've melted it all. So don't rush it, but don't hold it too long over any one area or you will scald the paper. Okay, so I'm just going to heat down the middle of the card now. So you should see the white powder disappearing because it's turning clear. Now you can heat from the back with embossing powder, but I find I get a better coverage from the front. Right, now, what I'm going to do now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but if I hold it to the, there we go, hopefully you can see that. If you tip your piece of cardstock and angle it to the light, you can see where it has melted. So I'm just going to literally tip this towards my window and check to see if I've missed any bits, and I think I have there. Yes. You'll be able to tell if you've missed any parts because they won't be glossy. They will still be matte. They may still be white, but if they've started to melt and not melted properly, they will still be matte. So I can see a couple of other areas. So just check before you move on to the next step that you've heated it all. Right, okay, I think we've got that. Okay, so you should be able to, when you angle it to the light, you should be able to see, hopefully you can catch that on camera, that that is now glossy, all of that. Okay, so we've got no white powder left, it's all glossy. So that means it's all melted. Okay, so I'm just going to move a few things out of my way, because my desk is starting to get a little bit muddled up. Okay, so, and as I said, use your embossing buddy, whatever type you've got, before you stamp, and that will help with any static. That's the one step in heat embossing I always forget. I teach all my ladies in class to do it, and I always forget to do it. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to just give that a few minutes to dry, because we need to cover it with a darker ink. So the inks we've used were Lemon Lime Twist, lost the plot now, Lemon Lime Twist, Shy Shamrock, Granny Apple Green, and we are now going to use Shaded Spruce, which is a nice dark green. So, but we just want to make sure that that embossing powder is dry. If you touch your embossing powder before it's properly dry, you will put your finger marks in it, basically. Oh, I can see another bit that hasn't heated. Just excuse me 2 seconds. I thought I'd got it all, and I've just found another piece that I hadn't got. So it is worth your while having a good look at it and making sure that it is all melted. Okay, yeah, can't see anything else. Right, so now what we're going to do, this is where we get really messy. We are going to ink up our bigger blending brush, and then we are just going to ink the entire card front. And you might be able to see the patterns showing up now. As I said, the last time I did this, I used Night of Navy as a top colour, because it was a Christmas card and we had lots of bright colours underneath. So, you know, you don't have to do green leaves. If you wanted to do oranges and yellows, or some browns, you could. The principle is still the same. So basically what the clear embossing powder does is it seals the colours underneath it. So when you ink over with your darker colour, as I'm now doing, the lighter colours won't change. Okay, and then the final step of this technique, I'm just going to put that away. The final step of this technique is to come in with a piece of dry kitchen roll. Do not, under any circumstances, do this with a baby wipe. It will get really messy. Okay, so then all we're going to do is buff across the areas that we've effectively sealed with our, you can see the ink coming off, look. So keep moving your kitchen roll around. We're buffing the ink off the areas where our Versamark and clear embossing powder are. And we can see through the colours that are underneath. I think that's a really nice effect, and I think this background stamp is really perfect for it. You can do it with any stamps that have got fairly big images. There we go. I'm quite pleased with that. Okay, let's just lob that piece of kitchen roll towards the bin. Move those over. Right, now what I'm going to do is bring in my card base. Try not to get everywhere inky. So the first thing we're going to do is adhere this to the piece of lemon lime twist. Now I'm using Tombow because we've got, you know, a few layers of ink and a layer of embossing powder on there, so it makes the cardstock quite stiff. Okay, so that's going down on our piece there. And I've just noticed, just a quick tip for you, if you find when your cutting blades are getting not as sharp as they were initially and you end up with a line where you've cut, just run your bone folder over it and it will soon smooth it out. Right, okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is add this to our base card. Okay. And I always open mine up so it doesn't bounce around. And again, I'm using Tombow, which gives me a little bit of wiggle room to get my edges level. Okay. I'm just going to give that a smooth down. Okay. There we go. That's our card put together. And I just want to have a greeting on the front. So when I'm cutting smaller layers of white, I always keep the edges. So these edges are about 1 centimetre, I think. About 1 centimetre wide. No, 2 centimetres wide. So rather than just lob them in the bin, they come in quite handy for small greetings, not bigger greetings, obviously, unless you split it up. So I'm just going to stamp. Now, this greeting is from the Cheerful Daisies, and it says, wishing you the brightest birthday. I'm just going to try and line that up without getting my head in the camera. Oh, okay. That's not perfect, so let's turn that over. Do that again. Let's try that again. It's my own fault. I didn't put stamp mat underneath. There we go. That's better. So I've stamped that in shaded spruce. I'm just cleaning up my ink pad. The only trouble with using a blending brush on your ink pad is that you tend to get quite a lot of ink on the ink pad, on the outside of it. Okay, and I'm just going to bring my snips in. And I'm just going to cut this at an angle like that on one end, and I'm going to leave the other end straight. Okay, I'm just going to put a couple of dimensionals on the back of that, just to pop it up a bit, because our card is quite one-dimensional at the minute, if you'll pardon the pun. And I've got my little jam jar for my backings. Do you know, it does help minimise the spread of these. I mean, I still find them in weird places, but not as much. Okay, and then we are going to put our greeting. Now, I did consider inking this with one of the lighter greens, but I think the white is quite a nice contrast to all that green that we've got. I'm just going to pop that at the bottom there, like that. Okay, then our last bit we need is something inside to write on. So this is quite a dark coloured cardstock, and I would normally stamp inside, but I'm not going to today. So I'm just going to stick that in. Oh, what have I done with my Tombow? Where have I put my Tombow? I'm going completely mad now. There's my little pot for it. What have I done with it? Oh, I would stick it in if I could find... Ah, there we go. Oh, goodness me. Put it in totally the wrong place. So, these little jam jars come in handy. We went out for an afternoon tea with some friends a few weeks ago, and I collared everyone's empty jam jars. They all looked at me like I was slightly stupid. Or mad, which they know I am anyway. But they work really well for standing your glue in upside down, so it's always ready to go, collecting your dimensionals in, and various other things. There we go. Right, so we've just stuck that white in there so we can write on it, and there's our finished card. So I like to think it could be used for a man or a woman. Obviously you don't have to put a birthday greeting on it, but that is mainly what I send. I think actually, to be fair, this would make quite a nice sympathy card. It would make thinking about you or let's catch up card. So as I said before, I really like this background stamp because I can think of lots of different ways to use it, and I will hopefully be sharing at least one more way with you in future videos. So hope you like the card. Thanks for watching. Hope you give it a go. As I said, if you're going out, wear gloves, and I'll see you all again soon. Thanks for watching and happy stamping.